Hey everybody, welcome in. My name is Troy Jaster. I am a proud Phi Kappa Psi alumnus, and it is Founders Day 2022, which means that's our 170th anniversary of our beloved fraternity. Amazingly, I remember when I was in college and we hit the 150, the sesquicentennial. That was a big deal. But with me, I've got a lot of guests today, and we're just going to be discussing our theme for Founders Day this year, which is I enjoyed it then, I enjoy it now. The gentlemen that are on the screen here with me today, we're just going to do a quick little around the world to get to know everybody. So as I mentioned, I'm Troy Jaster, a Tennessee Epsilon alumnus. That's the University of Tennessee. 2000 was my initiation year, and I currently live in San Antonio, Texas, and am in the real estate business down here. And so I'm going to go with Chuck Higgins, because you are our most seniored member on this panel, and so everybody's going to be itching to hear from you. So Chuck, give us a quick little background of you. I know there's a lot to be said, but do what you can to give us the short version of who you are.
I'm Chuck Higgins, and I was initiated into Tennessee Delta, which is Vanderbilt, in 1967. So that's 55 years of being a Phi Psi, which is about 2/3 of my life, it seems like. I'm a retired environmental engineer. I've been to every class and educational opportunity that the fraternity has offered over the years, and I have been a chapter advisor for 2 redevelopments at recolonizations at Vanderbilt. So that's not very proud of that, but that's just what it takes. And yeah, I'm really happy to be here tonight.
That's great. Thank you so much, Chuck. And let's now head over to Gordon. Give us the background for you, sir.
Thanks, Troy. My name is Gordon Gough, Ohio Delta, activated in 1997, so almost 25 years ago to the day. It's crazy to believe that much time has passed. I run a Columbus firm called the Ohio Council of Retail Merchants. I'm the president and CEO, and I currently serve as the House Corporation Board President for Ohio Delta's House Corporation. So appreciate the opportunity to speak with you guys tonight.
And Gordon, is it like mandatory state law? You have to say the Ohio State University. Is that required?
Did I say that too? Did I say the Ohio State University? It just comes off the tongue so easy. So.
The annoying Ohio State University. Thank you, Gordon. All right, Dan, let us know who you are.
Thanks so much, Troy. Thank you, Chuck and Gordon. My name is Dan Madden. I was a member of Alabama Alpha. I was initiated in the fall of 2018 and recently just graduated this past May in the spring. Currently, I live and work in Dallas, Texas, working in legal and regulatory for private wealth management. At my time at the University of Alabama, it was some of the best times I wish I could relive, especially beating the Ohio State University National Championship my senior year. It was a great way to go out, but was very fortunate for the opportunities and experiences I got to have as an active member of Phi Psi, from serving as new member chairman to our local boards, or to serving as the District 4 Archon, which I just recently wrapped up this past summer. So it's been a tremendous experience. And I look forward to the rest of our chat tonight.
That's great. And now you get to live the alumni side of things, which, I guess I'm 20 years out. Gordon's 25 years, Chuck's 50 plus years. And now you're the newest alumnus on the block. So start writing those checks.
It feels good. Just give me a few years and I'll start writing the checks.
There you go. All right, Sam, you are the undergrad voice of our panel tonight. So give us your background, sir.
Yeah, thanks, Troy. Like you mentioned, my name's Sam Wirtz. I'm from Indianapolis area, and I attend Indiana University. So that's the Indiana Beta chapter of our beloved fraternity. And I was initiated in 2020. So I'm, like you said, I'm the least senior of the panel, but I'm very grateful for the experiences I've had so far. I just got done serving on my chapters exec team, and on last summer, kind of where Dan left off, I picked up, and I'm now the District 3 Archon. So I've had a lot of great experiences doing that so far in my short time in that position, and I'm looking forward to serving the fraternity and getting even further into that position. So, yep, ready to talk about why we love Phi Psi.
There you go. Well, and Sam, I'll just start with you, since you are, at least your memories should be the clearest out of all of us. So what was it that drew you to Phi Psi?
Yeah, I think it might be kind of the cliche answer, maybe when you ask kids that answer or that question, but it was the brotherhood, it was the guys. I came into Indiana Beta at a very new point in our, so we recolonized and then just rechartered when I became associated with the fraternity. So it was a lot of guys who were very motivated to see the success in our chapter, see success in the classroom, leadership on and off campus, and those were things that I really looked for, in individuals that I wanted to associate myself with. So that was probably the biggest factor. And why I chose Phi Psi, and just, going around to see all the other houses during Rush, I was just immediately drawn to the house and the chapter, and then the gentleman that made up the chapter. So that's really why I joined, and I'm happy to be involved still.
Yeah. I know my answer to that has always been that, just like you said, and I'm sure we'll hear from some of the other guys too, that, we all probably had a similar experience where you go and tour all the different houses and things. And for me, it was that the guys who were in the Phi Psi house, as soon as I walked in and started to meet people, it just felt so much like that really tight group of high school friends that I had. The guys that I grew up with for years. It felt like, wow, I'm walking into that, and these guys seem to already exude that. I mean, Gordon, Dan, Chuck, what do you guys say? Similar scenarios?
Absolutely. I mean, the friendships that I think you make in the chapter house are lifelong friendships. And just over, the holidays here recently, I was with, a couple of guys from my pledge class and a class just after mine. And you go back, and those 4 years of time feel like 15 or 20 years, but the amount of stories and relationships that you build, we'll go back and talk about things that happened, 20, 25 years ago, and laugh hysterically like we did when it occurred. And those bonds, you just can't break. And I'll tell you that a lot of things that I do in my life today, professionally, if I know if Phi Psi is involved, it's just one other layer that I don't have to go through, because I know the trust and the bond is there. And I think it's something, it's probably one of the greatest decisions that I ever made in my life, was to join Phi Psi.
Yeah, true. I think it's probably the most important question you can ask someone when they're about fraternities is, why did you join this fraternity? Because when you go to a school, there are, especially like the University of Alabama, there are 10 to 30, 40 fraternities you could join. And joining a fraternity isn't, signing up for a social club. It's not something you just sign a piece of paper and all of a sudden, you're a part of it. And you have to want to join it. You have to say, why do I want to put in the time and the effort and to make a lifelong commitment here? Because it's not just over at 4 years. And I was born and raised in Boston, Massachusetts, and I decided to go to the University of Alabama. And obviously, Alabama is a lot different culture and a lot further away than Boston, Massachusetts. And I actually didn't rush my freshman year. I was a little hesitant. And my sophomore year, I decided to give it a go. And I think what drew me to Phi Psi is that every school, has their, I don't know if you want to call them stereotypes, but each fraternity kind of has their cliche of what they bring. Some fraternities only take Southern kids or whatever it may be. And one thing I really loved about Phi Psi is that although I was in Alabama, having 150 active brothers from all over across the country, from Massachusetts to New Hampshire or California, Texas, wherever it might be, it kind of felt like you're home away from home. You found kids who were around the same neighborhoods that you grew up in, or had a lot of similar experiences that you may have in high school. So it was just an awesome opportunity to be with people who are like-minded and grew up very similar experiences to yourself, and also gain a lot of that knowledge from kids all across the country and all the world. So it's something that I saw it and I wanted to be a part. I knew I wanted to be a part of it, and I'm very glad I did, because one of the probably the best experience I've made so far in my 23 years of living.
That point of having the chapter that's really diverse, and I think that's something that I've seen as a common thread throughout Phi Psi. A lot of the chapters that we'll see are really geographically diverse, which I think that's a really neat thing. When I was at the University of Tennessee, which of course is in Knoxville, there were some of those chapters that it was a pipeline. The kids from this high school in Nashville went to this fraternity in Knoxville, and it was like it's all the same people. And yet our chapter at Tennessee was, I had friends from Michigan, and I grew up in Wisconsin, and we had, people from the Midwest and from Georgia and Florida and the far Northeast, New York and Texas, and just all over the place. And, if nothing else, that told me that, post college, if I'm somewhere in the country and need a couch to crash on, I probably have a connection somewhere. And so I always thought that was really unique. And I've found out that it seems to be a common thread throughout Phi Psi. It's an interesting trait.
Absolutely, and I think it's a great trait to have.
Yeah, I agree. So Chuck, what do you think? What was the thing that drew you to Phi Psi?
Although I'm of a different era, going to school in 1966 as a freshman, it's the same thing. Phi Psi was at the time when the university was a deep Southern SEC. By the way, there's 3 SEC guys on this class. There's one guy from the Ohio State University. That was a more diverse group of men. And because I'd come down from Ohio, I was a whole lot more comfortable than in KA and Sigma Chi and you name them, you can name them. So I found a niche there, and I've been continuously active since 1967 when I was initiated.
Yeah. Gordon, you mentioned a minute ago that you had, I think you'd said over the holidays that you had met up with some of your classmates, and that you're laughing at some of those stories from 25 years ago. Other than, I think probably all of us, our initiation is likely one of the best stories that we all have from our undergraduate days. But Gordon, what's one of those things where you look back from your undergrad days and you just smile or laugh every time you think about it? Just one of your favorite memories.
Probably my favorite memory, and probably that's helped me the most professionally, was probably my time as chapter president. And I think those of us who have served in leadership roles within the chapter realize that sometimes the duty of office comes before some friendships. And when you're president and you're making tough decisions, you find out very quickly who your good friends are in the chapter, and understand the decisions that you have to make as an officer. And I mean, looking back now at those decisions, a $300,000 annual budget as a 21-year-old, 22-year-old kid, it was a big responsibility. And I look back and say, how did we do it? I don't know. I mean, all the guys that I look back and the times we had and the fun we had, how do we pull it all together? And I think it's just that magic that I think all of you have talked about with the relationships and the friendships. And at Ohio State, our chapter had been, we were the second fraternity at Ohio State, and we got our charter in 1880. So a long history of Phi Psi at Ohio State. So, as chapter president, as House Corporation president now, I'm standing on the shoulders of others who have done this before me and have given us the opportunity to be who we are today. So I look back and just am grateful for the friendships, relationships, and, grateful for where it's put me today.
Yeah, that's fantastic. And Sam, I'm going to come back to you because again, hopefully your memory is clearest of all of us on these things. But what in your just couple of years with Phi Psi, what are some of the things that just really stood out or have stood out already as favorite memories?
Yeah, so I mean, I can relate to, some of the things Gordon and Chuck said there. I've served on the exec team, so I understand that viewpoint and just, learning, you have to make some tough decisions and finding out who your friends are. But I kind of, when Gordon said that, I just thought, how many good friends I do have, in the fraternity. And a lot of that, is from, we have a lot of brotherhood events. We try to do 2 or 3 a month. And recently we watched the Super Bowl, we're getting ready for another Super Bowl, or excuse me, not a Super Bowl, Olympics is coming up, so we'll watch a lot of that together, and just spending a lot of time together doing those events. I mean, it's not anything super big, but those are where the real foundational relationships are made. It's not at parties and stuff. It's really in the house with just the guys are here. We're having a good time together, and those are some of the things I think that'll last with me through my life forever. So that's probably some of the best things for me.
Sam, it's funny that you mentioned that, because as I look back on my my undergraduate career, and Chuck, Dan, I don't know if you guys agree with this or not, but I'm not sure that there's one specific major event that I look back on as like, this one thing was my favorite memory. But it's all those little things that seemingly in the moment are nothing. It's watching, like you said, watching a Super Bowl together. Or I remember one year, I don't know where the World Cup was in a particular year, but we got up at like 2 o'clock in the morning to watch a USA game. And the random road trips. We went one year from Knoxville to Michigan State just for a weekend, go watch a football game. Like who does those kinds of things? But it's like those are they weren't the major events, but those were the events that I just look back on, and I still, if I see guys that were in those same eras with me, we'd immediately start talking about some of those things. I mean, like I said, Dan, Chuck, what do you guys think?
I couldn't have said it better myself, Troy, and the way you phrased it, the moments that seemed like nothing at that time and you kind of took for granted, and then you look back on it and you're like, that was some of the most fun that like I had, and I didn't even know it. Obviously there are a lot of, there are a lot of plenty other fun things we could talk about it for days of stories and parties and whatever it might be. But for me, it's just like, like you said, I mean, just like it at the time, it just seemed like nothing, but like waking up on a Sunday to have chapter and just the discussions that went on at chapter, and the yelling and the bickering, the laughing, and the just like having fun. It just like I could sit there and start laughing at someone or something, or a story that happened the night before, and you kind of take it now, you take it for granted when you grow up, but like those to me are some of just the best moments that I had in the fraternity for sure.
You better be. These bunch of old guys that are talking about all the good times that you're having right now, so you better be listening.
I can't imagine a chapter meeting on Sunday morning. I just got to say that.
Trust me, a lot of people couldn't believe it either, but it happened. It happened.
Yeah, no, I think that my experience is more than similar with what you guys have described. I mean, it's not the grand initiation, that as impressive as that is and as meaningful as it is. It's not that. It's the most impressive stuff to me is just the opportunity to be a man with other men trying to learn how to be better men. And to do that involves a lot of relationship building and trust building. And that can be a whole lot of fun, building those relationships. But what's important about them is the end result, which is to be a better man. And that's what the fraternity is all about, as far as I'm concerned. I know it made me a better man.
Well, and that's so well said, Chuck, and actually kind of brings me to my next question is, tell me about when, something that was a really big lesson that you learned. And, I think all of us had, undergraduate executive positions, and certainly those alumni of us have had, alumni positions as well. And so, what's a lesson that, came directly from your days at Phi Psi, or maybe even a skill that came from it?
I had the first person I fired was a pledge brother.
Wow.
And the chapter had me do it when I was the GP. And this pledge brother who had gone through pledge training, it was not new member education, and it was pledge training, had never made his grades, and so was never initiated. And he wasn't even in school, and he would come down and hang around at the chapter house. And the guys that knew it, the guys that pledged him, many of them had graduated, and he was my pledge brother. And the chapter said, we're tired of having this guy around here. He doesn't do anything but make problems, which is true. And he wasn't a member. He'd never been initiated. So that was the first guy I had to fire. And it was the hardest firing I ever had. And I was an executive in business and fired a number of people. But that was a unique educational experience that I got through the fraternity. And I'm sure that I'm not the only one that has had one of those life experiences. Maybe everybody on this panel has. That's the one I'll never forget. It was very hard, but it made me a better man.
And it was a lesson that you learned at what, 20, 21, 22, 23 years old?
21.
Yeah. Yeah. Who else? What's a skill or a lesson that you learned when you were an undergraduate?
I think, Troy, one to kind of piggyback off what Chuck was saying is that I think for many, being in a fraternity in college, especially serving in a leadership role, for some is the first time they've ever had to sit in a leadership role. And it's kind of tough to do that sometimes when you're, depending on your chapter, when you're in charge of 150 guys who went through the same things that you did the same thing that you did, were initiated into the same fraternity, is sometimes you kind of have to be the bad guy, whether you want to phrase it that way or not. And I think it's important being in a fraternity and serving on an executive board. Now, I know I had to do this, and it taught me really well, is that you can't make everyone happy. It's impossible to make every single person happy. So, as you know, being a brother and standing by the values of Phi Psi and what our creed says, sometimes you want to say, well, he's my friend, he's my pledge brother, I'm just going to let him off the hook. But I think being a leader is much more important than that, is that you have to be able to tell yourself, okay, I have to do what's good, I have to do what's fair, I have to do what's just, and I have to act on behalf of the fraternity, because that's the position I got myself elected into. So what Chuck was saying, there were numerous times, whether serving as Archon or as an executive board member of Alabama Alpha, sometimes you have to be able to put your foot down. You have to make decisions on behalf of the fraternity, and that's not an easy thing to do by any means. But I think you'll be able to sleep well at night if if you made the right decision, which is definitely a tough lesson. It's a lesson that I take in my job now, and it's a lesson I learned is being an Army officer at this moment. It's one of those things that Phi Psi taught me, and I'm very, very glad I was able to learn that lesson early on.
Dan, you reminded me of one of the things that I talked a lot when I was alumni advisor at Texas State was what I termed the good guy clause, where an issue would come up and they might say, half the room would be sitting there wanting to draw the line and have a hard stance on something, while the other half of the room is going, but he's a really good guy, let's cut him some slack. And ultimately my discussion with them would be, well, if he wouldn't be here if he wasn't a good guy. So we can't just give him the good guy pass. We have to have a standard. And if we don't have a standard that we're going to be held on, then who are we? Where do we stand on these issues? So yeah, you kind of reminded me of that, Dan, as you were describing that.
Yeah, no, for sure. And it's unfortunate sometimes, but I think it's a good lesson, is that when people are in those positions as leaders, sometimes you'll cut a guy some slack. Okay, and you don't think it's a big deal. You cut him some slack and won't happen again. But by doing that, and I think people learn very quickly when stuff goes upside down, is by you making that decision, you just set the standard for everybody else and let them know that if they do that, they can. Because if you're all brothers and you're all one and you're in the same organization, once you set that standard, then you have to carry it on for for everybody else. So sometimes it's tough, but it's definitely a valuable lesson that I think the fraternity teaches by serving in leadership positions and just being a member of Phi Psi.
Yeah. What about you, Gordon?
The benefit of listening to all of you speak, I think looking back now, probably the biggest lesson that I learned was accountability and how important accountability is. Many of us came from, our parents' home into college, and we always had that fallback of mom and dad could kind of make things right. And when you're being held accountable to yourself and then hold others to that same standard, I think it really defines you as a person. I think we can all look back, the rule of the 20, rule of the 80. You kind of look back at the guys who you could count on. And in times of crises, as big as you may have thought they were 25, 20 years ago, at least in my time frame, looking back, they weren't big issues, but you had to have the folks that you could count on and be accountable and holding yourself to that same standard. So I think it's probably the biggest lesson that I learned.
Yeah. And then Sam, so from the undergraduate perspective, you maybe haven't had as much time to learn lessons, but what have you caught so far?
Yeah, I think I've definitely had an opportunity to learn a few lessons in my short time with Phi Psi. But as I was listening to everyone else talk, I kind of thought, maybe a main theme there was really that I've learned so much about communication. And, I think that each one of those things, accountability, not letting a brother get away with something, keeping him accountable to our, the creed and our beliefs and morals, and hiring and firing even. It's something you can rehearse, in the mirror in your room, doing 1,000 times. But until you actually do that, or you're forced to, look at someone in the eyes and have those tough conversations, it's hard to really get good practice. And I think that's something that being on the exec team and then now as a district archon that I've learned and continue to learn and hope to get better at as my time continues in Phi Psi.
So we have a lot of a long history from someone who is recently initiated a couple of years ago to someone who's initiated over half a century ago. But my question now for you guys is what keeps you motivated to still be involved with Phi Psi?
I can start, Troy. I tell you, why they took a middle-class, working-class white kid from Kettering, Ohio to join the fraternity, I'll never know. But I always feel as though I have a debt that I can't repay. And whatever I can do to forward the livelihood or ability for you guys that are going to be coming after me, I want to always be a part of that and give back. I just think it's a debt that I'm never going to be able to repay. And being active and giving my time, money and talents to the fraternity is something I'll probably do till I leave the earth.
That's a tough one to follow.
Well, this is, in some ways, this is kind of this gathering is a little bit of the commonality of the brotherhood, because I'm a graduate of a high school in Kettering, Ohio that went off to the South as a diversity initiate diversity admission, because I was a Yankee in a an Alabama-like university at the time. But yeah, I've been to a number of GACs and been to a number of the old Woodrow Wilsons and other chapters, and we're very similar Phi Psis from chapter to chapter. And unlike other guys I know who are members of other fraternities, I wouldn't say we're unique in that, but not all fraternities are like that. And we know fraternity. I don't want to throw other people under the bus, but there are monolithic fraternities out there, and we're not one of them. And that's our strength, I believe. We're not only not monolithic across the country, we're not monolithic within our chapters. But that's my experience at Phi Psi.
Yeah. So from the younger guys, what motivates you to stay involved or to stay active?
For sure. I think being in the position, having only graduated a few months ago, is kind of what, it's the make or break point. Because when kids graduate, they're either committed to Phi Psi and committed to the fraternity, or you'll unfortunately probably never hear from them again in regards to the Phi Psi. But I think one of the reasons why is I continue to stay involved, serving on a communications committee now, and hope to continue to serve for the rest of my life, is because, to be honest, that's what I signed up for, and I think that's what everyone signed up for, because it was, in my opinion, there's nothing, when you join Phi Psi that says this is a 4-year commitment, and it's a lifelong commitment, and once you turn 60. No, the brothers just don't disband. It's like being a brother for life. There's no time limit on it. And then I just think too, it's to echo what Gordon was saying. I just will forever be thankful and grateful for the opportunities that the fraternity has presented to me. Kind of like to think of the big picture with it, in that I think a lot of kids my age would do anything to be able to go to a conference like Pivot in Orlando, Florida, where the fraternity is just giving you wonderful experiences and paying and going to Disney World, whatever it is that I think a lot of kids would be kicking to do that in their lifetime. I'm just forever grateful for it. And that's something hopefully I can give back to this fraternity, the experiences and memories and just the lessons that I've learned. And hopefully one day, once I grow old, when a kid's going to college, I can help him give that experience, know how much it meant to me.
Yeah, I'll kind of piggyback off Dan there a little bit. We're not too far off in age, and a lot of his reasons are kind of, the same things I would say. I kind of joined my chapter specifically at a time where we were really trying to promote growth and change and really establish ourselves. And I think for me and a lot of, or all of my pledge brothers and brothers Sudan and Beta, that's probably one of our main reasons for, giving back and really being devoted to the fraternity. But then, you get into what Gordon and Chuck were saying about all the things that I've received so far in my short time, that I really feel a need to give back to the fraternity. And that's one of the reasons I wanted to be the district archon. And luckily I've been able to be in that position, and we'll continue to hopefully do a good job there. And then, after kind of like Dan was saying as well, I think that the brotherhood is something you sign up for a lifetime. I hope that I'm still friends with the people I've met till the day I die. And the only way to do that is if we remain committed to seeing the advancement and progression of our fraternity. So I fully believe in 30, 25, however many years from now, I'll still be involved.
One of the things that I've often thought of and is so often as an alumnus, you hear people say, I was a Phi Psi, or I was, fill in the blank, whatever fraternity. And that's always been something that I challenge people on is, the response. I don't care if you're day 1 or year 90, it doesn't matter. It's I am a Phi Psi, not I was. And I think that's, I think back to when I graduated, and that I don't even know what they call it. I guess it's the last time that when you're acknowledged in the chapter meeting and you're sent off into your alumni status, and one of the charges they give you is find your local chapter. Sometimes people would ask me, as I went from college undergrad in Knoxville, Tennessee to moving to San Antonio, Texas, like they say, well, what in the world, how'd you end up in, working with Texas State University? with the fraternity there. And my response was just, well, like Dan, you said earlier, like that's what I signed up for. When they had the alumni ceremony, they said, when you go to a new city, find your local chapter. And that's what I was doing. You know, I was just following what I was told to do, and, you know, have done that ever since. So, you know, Sam, you mentioned obviously, you know, leadership is something that you have been part of as an undergraduate, and I think most of us have. What's a leadership lesson that has come directly from your work in the chapter?
For me, and I know I already kind of hit on this, but it's been that communication aspect. I've been pretty blessed with some opportunities before I was involved in the fraternity, with the possibilities to take some leadership, you know, action. But it really hit home for me when, you know, you get to a group of 125, 130 guys, where you try to all go in the same direction. And I don't know if there's many places really where that's replicated, you know, anywhere else on the college campus, with, you know, organizations that big for students to lead. And I think that's been the biggest thing I've taken away from it. And the biggest thing, you know, I hope that I can translate well into my career after Phi Psi.
What about you other guys? What leadership lessons have come directly from Phi Psi?
Working with people for me. I mean, I think, you know, working inside of a chapter, different personalities, folks from different parts of the country, fact that you can, you know, work with those folks, learn personalities, people skills, soft skills, how to speak. I remember the first time in a chapter meeting, we did our chapter dinners on Monday nights, and it was, you know, coat and tie. And I took off my sport coat and put it in the chair behind me, and the owner of the alum said, "You don't take your coat off in a business meeting." I learned that, and never taken my coat off since when I've ever sat down for a meal, if I'm wearing a suit coat or a sport coat. So small things like that somebody, you know, was able to kind of explain the ways of the world to you, I think it's been important. So I've had a lot of leadership experiences that I'm using today.
I think that in a peer group of 50, 60 people who are more, you know, who are hierarchically very thin, that negotiating those relationships, standing your ground and positioning yourself in a non-adversarial, I mean, your brothers will tell you in a nanosecond if you're inappropriately responding, because you're all, you know, your peers and your brothers. You're not in a hierarchical. We have a hierarchy, but the collective is not hierarchy, and those are the lessons that you learn, or you're not happy. You may not be kicked out, but you know that they're unhappy with you, and so that is a softer way of learning that lesson than being in a meeting, as Gordon has described, and having somebody pull your chain and hard. And so there are lots of life lesson opportunities in the day-to-day operation of the chapter, and particularly its management and control. So those are value added in an educational experience.
Absolutely. And what about you, Dan?
As I touched on earlier, when it comes to Phi Psi and being in a leadership role, is for many, this is the first time you're serving in a leadership role in that capacity. And I think we all believe in the phrase that you got to be able to walk before you know how to run. And I think one of the biggest lessons I got from serving as a leader in Phi Psi is finding out what type of leader you are. Being a leader isn't a cookie cutter thing and everyone is the same. There are plenty of leaders who are the guy standing up on a chair being the vocal guy, or it's the guy behind the scenes doing all the work. And leadership takes many forms. As we all know, we could think of leaders throughout history who all had vastly different leadership styles, but they're still leaders at the end of the day. And I think Phi Psi is a great starting point for many for that they can use that leadership style that they're able to work out the kinks to, serving as a student leader. And yeah, there are times you're going to be wrong, but it's okay to make mistakes. You just got to learn from those mistakes. But finding that leader who you are and what you believe in, and then using that, what you learned in Phi Psi, and continuing that on throughout your life, that was a big lesson that I learned, because I know I learned a lot through that and kind of fine-tuned who I was as a leader.
Sam, I think you can probably, or excuse me, Dan, I think you can probably agree that you would say Phi Psi has made you a better person overall, yes?
Yes, absolutely.
So how do you think that is? Like, what, you know, is it the people around you that see it in you? Is it your family that notices? What does that look like?
Well, I think when it comes to being a better person, and usually in my personal opinion is, it's hard to be a good person when you don't have a reason on why you're doing something. If you don't have a set of morals or a belief system, it's kind of hard to act as a good person. You're not believing in anything. You don't even know what you're doing. You're kind of just acting instinctively. But I think with Phi Psi, or being in a fraternity, or being in a club or a sports team or whatever it might be, is that you have something backing you, as an individual. You have an organization to fall back on. And if you're being a normal fraternity guy, you're walking around campus with the Phi Kappa Psi letters on your t-shirt each and every day, and people are seeing that and people are looking at that. And I don't know anyone who would want to have an organization on their chest and all of a sudden go out and look like be an a-hole, for lack of a better term. Is that there's an organization that I didn't just join. I didn't just sign a piece of paper. I worked to be in this. I tried hard to be in this. I sacrificed time to be in this. So I want to give it the best representation it possibly has. And I want to carry on those morals and traditions that our brothers started over hundreds of years ago. I don't want to disrespect them or the people who came before me and put in the work, the money, and the effort to give me this experience. I'd rather try to, to pay it forward a bit, and to have that set of morals and ethics that Phi Psi believes in. That's why I joined, because of those morals and ethics.
Chuck, I think you mentioned earlier about Phi Psi making you a better person. So, what does that look like over the longevity of things? How do you still see that as Phi Psi still 50 plus years later making you a better person?
Well, 50 years later, I still got some chapter brothers and some pledge brothers that'll pull my chain in a nanosecond if I get out of line. So, that's simple and straightforward, because fortunately for me, and it's not always the case for brothers when we leave university and start careers and not around, because I stayed in Nashville and a number of other brothers from that era. I'd literally have guys that I was in the chapter with or came up a year or two after me or a year or two before me, who I'm engaged with. And they are very comfortable with telling me when I'm out of line. And that's good. That I don't always like to be told I'm out of line, but it's glad to hear it from somebody other than my wife, who that's a familiar experience for those of us that are married on this call, or have been married. So yeah, it's what it points to is that it's more than just a club. Phi Psi is more than just a campus club. And you get out of it what you put into it. And if you don't put in, then your brothers are going to be quick to tell you that you're out of line. And maybe they don't need you, because they probably don't. And so I think that's the way it's played out for me over the years.
Yeah. And Sam, what do you think in your short time? Has Phi Psi made you a better person?
Yeah, it definitely has. I think we've talked a lot about, the lessons and the things that have made us, happy or, proud to be a Phi Psi. and those are things that I'll never forget about. Hearing Chuck speak kind of reminded me of my own situation right now. I'm roommates with one of my best friends from high school, who he actually was able to join the fraternity before me. And then I came in, and we're still roommates today in the chapter house. And I know that if I'm going to get off course, he's probably going to let me know pretty quickly that, I've done something wrong, or probably how I can fix it. And we just generally have, conversations about our, each other, how we're doing and things like that. And that, keeps you on the straight and narrow, and makes, kind of allows you to have a gauge almost of, how you're doing, where you're going. But also mini brothers, I'm lucky to be close like that with many guys, and they're not afraid to let me know if I'm doing something wrong, and I'm not afraid to, have tough conversations with them. So Phi Psi has definitely made me a better person, better man, and hopefully I continue to learn those lessons, until I graduate, and then thereafter as an alumni member.
Yeah. Gordon, same for you. What do you think?
I mean, I think it's, it's made me a better person for a lot of reasons. I think, as Chuck was talking about, I think you have to be your true, genuine self. And I think your brothers, as soon as you try to be someone who you're not, the brothers are going to, point it out very quickly and pull your chain. I mean, to this day, if I have a lunch or dinner or grab a couple of cocktails with some of my buddies and I say something outlandish, I'm going to get the look like, what the hell are you talking about? And it's funny. And we all laugh about it because we've all been there. And you just have that common bond. And for those of us, who have graduated now, for me, 25, been out of the chapter for over 20 years, it's very difficult to make relationships like you're going to make in the fraternity house. You just don't have the time. Outside of your spouse, it's really hard to make those type of deep relationships where you really trust somebody the way you do. And Chuck was laughing about his spouse. I'm lucky because I've met my wife as a Phi Psi, and she's known how I've been for the last 20 years. And so she knows that's what I married, that's what I'm with. And so I can do all the Phi Psi stuff I want, which I'm fortunate.
I know the first time I took my wife to a Founders Day, she saw Paul Weinman speak. And as soon as he was done, she looked at me and she goes, "Okay, I get it." It was just that quick. So, all right, for those of us alumni here, this is our chance to speak some words of wisdom towards Sam and the rest of the undergraduates. So what advice do you guys have for today's undergraduate?
I think that my advice is that you really need to look longer term. Short term can make you feel real good, but get you in places you don't want to be, really. And so you need to, as you act as men and as you act as brothers, specifically Phi Psi, you got to act not in the moment and not what feels good, but what brings credit to yourselves and the organizations and the people that you associate with. That's my experience over time. That's when people get, and chapters and individuals get in trouble, when they don't take a longer term view than just the moment.
It's a really interesting thought. What about Dan or Gordon? What do you guys think?
I would just say, stay committed. You've committed to the chapter, you committed to yourself to be a Phi Psi. Continue that. Continue to foster the relationships that you have. And I think for those of you who aren't going to be in the town where your chapter is once you graduate, I'm fortunate. I'm still in Columbus. So Ohio State's, 10 miles down the road. But like you, Troy, continue to give back to a chapter in the city in which where you live. And I think that you continue to do that, you will always feel the reward of what it means to be a Phi Psi. You'll always be connected. and just that little spark. You never know what you can say or advice you give to a young person that springboards them into the career that they want to be. And continue. And as an alum, if you get an email from an undergraduate who wants to talk to you, take it, call them, take the emails, respond, and see if you can be helpful to them. And I think that's the important thing, is that you continually give back. And I think that's the important thing.
For sure. And with Sam, and as you're, be just beginning your journey as serving as an Archon, you'll have a lot of great experiences, a lot of fun memories, and meet a lot of people that you'll remember for the rest of your life. But it's kind of what I tell everyone that my brothers in Phi Psi is that your experience in Phi Psi, making it a good experience or bad experience, it's all what you choose to do. You can become a brother of Phi Psi and sit there and do nothing and say, oh, that wasn't that great of an experience. Or you can take advantages of the opportunities that Phi Psi has to offer. I mean, you can just look at yourself right now. And when you decided to join Phi Psi a couple of years ago, maybe I'm wrong and tell me if I am, but at least I didn't see it this way, is that I never thought in a million years, I'm like, wow, I'd get to serve on a executive council and travel the country and meet all these brothers that I've never thought I'd meet in a million years. And I'm sure if I were to reach out to them in just a few months, they'd be the first person to pick up the phone and help me out if I ever had a problem or need an issue. And it's all about taking those opportunities and taking advantage of everything you can do. Because of course, as we've all agreed and mentioned, that the brotherhood isn't just a 4-year commitment, it's a lifelong journey. But that 4 years as an undergrad are some of the most important years to lay your foundation for being a leader and a student and just a member of the community of Phi Kappa Psi. So it's what you make of it, and just take in the amount of opportunities and experiences you can have with Phi Psi. I'm amazed with new ones every single day. I didn't think were, I never would have thought of. So there's a million opportunities to take advantage of.
So Sam, this is your chance for rebuttal. What did you hear? What's resonating? What do you hear from us?
I appreciate Dan there kind of speaking a little bit directly towards my experiences as an Archon, and those are all great things. I kind of feel the same way there. To be honest, I didn't even realize what an Archon was early on in that first year, but then after finding out about it and all the great things that I get to do, because my brothers put me in that position, which I'm grateful for. So I look to continue to succeed there and do well for the fraternity. Just like Gordon and Chuck were saying, it's all about the connections. It's all about being involved. If I were going to tell somebody, a younger freshman or somebody in the new member process, it's get involved in the fraternity, out of the fraternity. On campus, a lot of times you get, really thinking about fraternity and, how can I help the fraternity? But there's a whole, world out there when you go to a place like Indiana or, really any university. But, there's 40,000 people on campus. There's a lot of people to meet. So, go out there and get involved. And like Gordon was saying, I think reaching out to the network of, Phi Psi's nationally is, very most important, almost maybe. I've done it. Indiana Beta is lucky to have, I believe, the largest living alumni total number. So we do a good job of that, and I've exploited all the alumni that have been willing to take my calls and questions for career development outside of the fraternity as well. So I thought everything that was said was great.
Well, and Chuck, I'm curious for you on this one. But what was that undergraduate experience like for you in the 1960s? And what do you think is the same or different for Sam today?
It was different in that there were a whole lot less rules from the university. There was a whole lot of independence. I go back to the pre-marijuana days, guys. It's hard to imagine, but there was such a time. so yeah, I mean, it's in terms of student life, it's different. It's different. And it's different at different universities. I mean, Vanderbilt is not the same place that I was today than it was in 1966 when I walked on campus. So yeah, the fraternity helps because of the interconnectedness, including headquarters. Headquarters are not bad guys. They're good. They're helpful. If you take advantage of them, they're not the enemy. They may enforce rules from time to time, and they've kicked my chapter off campus twice, and both times they deserved it. One time I called them down here and said, hey, kick these guys out. They're not any good. Hated to do that, but we're better for having done it. So the headquarters, my message would be headquarters are good guys. We need them, and they are very helpful. They are not the enemy.
Well, and so now, talk to, there's maybe a potential alumnus that's out here listening that is considering getting back involved with the fraternity. What should that person know? What do they need to do?
Well, I mean, it's you can call headquarters and say, is there an alumni association in the area? You can get a grand catalog. I actually was using this the other night. That's why it's here. This is actually out of date. This is the grand catalog from 2015. But you can go there and find out where, you can do geographic, and it'll tell you whatever city you're in, even if there's not a chapter there, it'll tell you all the Phi Psis that are in the town. So you can just cold call an alum. I mean, it's happened to me a couple of times, and I've always welcomed them. I guess I can't imagine that there would be some alums that would not appreciate the call, but I'd say they're in the minority.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, there are resources, and now the headquarters webpage will accomplish everything. I'm just old school, and so that works for me because I'm a slide rule engineer. Not anymore, but that's where I started. So yeah, take advantage of the technology and the sophistication that we have at headquarters, and that's how you can get involved. You can find all the alumni you want.
Yeah, and Gordon, what do you think? What's your message to you've been involved for quite a while? What's your message to that alumnus that might be sitting on the fence?
Get involved. I mean, the life experiences, the career you have something to offer to these undergraduates. You don't have to be the richest alum to come back and give buckets of money. You have life experiences, career experiences. You might, you can be empathetic to certain aspects of the chapter because the experience that you had as an undergrad can be helpful. Give back, be a part. I mean, if we're going to continue to grow this fraternity into the future and make it as grand as we all want it to be, we all have to give back and just get involved.
And it's interesting. You reminded me of one of the Rush events several years ago at Texas State, where we invited several of the alumni to the house night. And the gentleman who was badge number 2 for that chapter showed up, and he hadn't been back on campus in decades. And by the end of the night, there was this just swarm of people all sitting around, just captivated by what he had to say. And for really just because it was he's history sitting there, So Sam, as the undergraduate on the panel here, what's your message to the alumni that's sitting out there? They maybe have the tickle in the back of their brain of, I'd like to get involved, but I really don't know what to do. I don't know if I have anything to offer. What do you have to say to that person?
Right. Well, I would think that the first kind of thought there I had was that they definitely do have something to offer, and that as someone who was on an exec team, I don't think we would ever have turned away an alumni who was willing to offer thoughts, help, whatever it might be, because we don't know all the answers. We're trying to find out the how to do things. We're trying to learn the best way to do things. And you can't just do that by yourself. You have to have somewhere to go, someone who you can go to ask, things of that nature. We were lucky enough to have a great advisor. We still do have a great advisor. But he can't do it all as well. So, we need the help. So if you're thinking about getting involved, think you might want to get involved, definitely do it. Because, we need help. We need people to talk to and things like that. So.
And Dan being one of, the most recent alumni, what do you have to tell that alumni who's sitting out there listening?
Yeah, I mean, I guess two things is number one, it's never too late. It's never too late to re-involve yourself within the fraternity. I would be hard pressed to find a chapter or a national association or alumni association that would say, "Oh no, you haven't. We don't want you." I would be hard pressed to find that. One, so it's never too late, and two, what do you have to lose? I think you ask yourself that question: is what do I have to lose here about wanting to get involved in my fraternity? Not that fraternity, the Phi Psi. No, it's your fraternity. When you get initiated into a fraternity, you join a fraternity. That's your fraternity for life. That is your fraternity, and I would just ask yourself: is what do you have to lose? I think it's everything to gain, whether that's offering advice to a young undergraduate who's looking for guidance on the smallest thing, or what can you learn yourself? I don't think you're ever done learning, or no matter what age you're at. You might be able to learn from a young guy, you might be able to learn from a colleague. I think it's just everything you have to gain. So why not go forward and put your best foot forward and try to help someone or learn something yourself?
Well, and that makes me think, and I'll pose this to the alumni here. What can the fraternity do for you right now as an alumni? What value can the fraternity provide?
I'll jump at this one. I think that there's a mutual thing for both the alums out there and also the undergraduates. Is the national fraternity could somehow be a clearinghouse for us that are actually hiring people. That we know that certain undergrads are in certain fields, want certain jobs, and all of those alums out there who are hiring people know how difficult it is, especially in this environment. Is can the national fraternity be a catalyst for us to do that? It's mutually beneficial for the undergraduate. It's mutually beneficial for the alum. And that's a good opportunity for us to kind of work together as alumni and undergraduates. I know Sam's kind of nodding his head. He's looking at what he's going to do for his career. I would love for at Ohio State that as soon as a pledge walks in the door, the first question we ask, or a recruit, the first question we ask is, I want to be an engineer. Okay, we're going to guarantee you get that job if you join. And we're going to connect you with these people to make sure that you get that job. And I know that we do that sometimes in this unregimented manner, but how can we do that with data behind it and make it a reality? And I think if we can have buy-in from the alums and from the undergraduates, a lot of the shenanigans and problems that fraternities are having go away overnight. And that's just my 2 cents.
Yeah, I think it's valuable. Absolutely. What about from the rest of you guys? What's something that Phi Psi can provide as a value to you?
I think that the part of the value I see in Phi Psi is the fact that it does have standards, and it does talk about their standards, and it does try to enforce their standards. And my hope for the fraternity is that we continue to enforce standards the way we're supposed to, and not give in to social pressure across that is wants the fraternities to not speak up and, think, and wants to categorize them and put them in the box of being a bad influence on undergraduate student life. We have to resist that actively, because I believe that fraternities can't not. I don't know all fraternities, but we are low-hanging fruit when somebody wants to point to some problem on campus. And I think we have to resist that, and resist that forcefully. And I also think that means that when we have bad low-hanging fruit on our own tree, and unfortunately my chapter has been that, we needed to be gone, and we're gone. We were gone. And I think we've got to continue to do that and not try to make the fraternity into some business, that is self-sustaining. If we can't sustain our fraternal roots and our standards, then maybe we shouldn't be around. But that's my mission, is make sure that we enforce our own standards and serve as an example for all of our membership.
And Chuck, I've heard you mention before about when you were initiated and how you were, I think you termed it, classically hazed. Tell us about what that looked like, and where you think we need to improve today.
Well, classic hazing, all you got to do is watch Animal House, and and I had everything from a pecker checker, and if you don't know what that is, then good for you. But I, and bombardier, I can give you the names of these things. Did nothing it made me hate the people that were doing that to me. And then I had to turn around in a ceremony and call them my brothers. Hazing makes no sense in a fraternity, in an organization like ours. So I guess I'm an anti-hazer. And so we've, and Phi Psi is an anti-hazing organization. So that's more of a function for most of our organization of the past. I wouldn't be surprised if there wasn't some hazing going on somewhere, but I know we don't approve of it. So that's the first thing, is we got to push and continue to push on hazing. Alcohol's a problem, drugs are a problem on college campuses, and we are, we swim in that pool, and we have to be conscious of that. And sexual assault, I'm a father of a daughter and a sorority girl, and I want to, that's not anything that we should be associated with. But we keep get kicked off various campuses for problems like that. So we have to police ourselves, and we have to set a standard of not, tolerating that kind of stuff. And that's my, that's my words of wisdom to our national organization. And our chapter.
I was just going to jump in there. I'm sorry, Troy.
Go ahead, Sam.
I was just going to jump in and say, as a kind of an undergraduate member, talking on behalf on this panel, maybe a little bit, it's something that even I've noticed the national organization does, or it kind of emphasizes, is that we want to report these things if they're happening. We want to stop them. We want to get ahead of them, essentially, because like Chuck mentioned, Is it unforeseeable to think that something is happening somewhere? Probably not, but we want to make sure if we're being proactive that we can get ahead of that, stop it before it becomes a real problem, and really change the culture of of Greek life in general. So
Yeah, I think we have a tremendous opportunity before us today. Why leadership training stops or training stops at the pledgeship? I think that leadership training should be at the sophomore year, the junior year, and the senior year. And it should be top down, I think, from the national fraternity. And when anybody in corporate America, wherever you are, they see Phi Kappa Psi, they know that individual has had great training. I think we have a tremendous opportunity to lead, as Chuck said, the Greek community out of this doldrum and go back to why we were founded, and what we can do for the communities in which we operate in. And I think it's a tremendous opportunity that we have to take right now.
Absolutely. So, gentlemen, as we start to wrap things up here, the theme for Founders Day this year, I enjoyed it then, I enjoy it now. Give me your final thoughts as to what does that mean for you as an undergrad, for you as an alumnus? I enjoyed it then, I enjoy it now.
I can maybe start there. I enjoy it then, I enjoy it now. I'm still kind of in that then phase, maybe. Yes, I'm still at the beginning of my enjoying the fraternity. But I've mentioned it before. I'm so grateful for the opportunity to be on this panel with you guys, talking about my experiences so far. And I'm sure down the road, I will continue to enjoy the fraternity, and hopefully I will enjoy giving back to the fraternity. And kind of like what Gordon, Chuck, and Dan mentioned, that's what it's all about once you get to that alumni phase of involvement, giving back, and still, kind of reliving those days in college with your brothers across the nation, and giving back to the fraternity.
Yeah, I can definitely pick up off what Sam said. I just left the then, now I'm in the now, I guess, if that's how you want to phrase it, graduating. But I think that phrase it's really all about perspective and how you see things. When I was junior, senior, when I was an undergrad, there are things I really appreciated about the fraternity. Whether it was, as I had mentioned previously, those times at chapter, or it was a party on a Friday night or a game day on a Saturday, that's what I love. Like, that was fun to me. That's what I appreciated. And now as an alumni, you have a much different perception of the fraternity, and you change as an individual and things you appreciate. And I think one thing to me is that I appreciate it at this current moment is I think that Phi Psi, coming in as an alumni, is obviously you're not on campus anymore or active within the undergraduate fraternity section, but is that I could go to a game day at the University of Alabama on a Saturday 5 years from now. I wouldn't know a single soul in that house when I came to an undergrad. Wouldn't know one person. But I'd be hard pressed for anyone to find me a place where I could leave and then 6 years later come back and not knowing a soul, and walking into that place and still feeling like I was at home. And now I could go to an organization not knowing anyone, but I still feel like I'm meant to be here. Like I enjoy this. I could walk into my old high school right now. I'd hate it. I wouldn't feel like I was there at all. But I could walk into Phi Psi and still have and appreciate the kids growing up, and to be able to talk to them the experiences. And so I think that will always, that phrase, I enjoy it then, I'll enjoy it now, will always transition. You'll have a new perspective on things, and hopefully you'll be able to find joy in that.
Gordon, what's it mean for you?
I think it's really the same. It's what we've talked about the last hour. It's the relationships and the people and the bonds that we make back then, and the continuation of those relationships and bonds. And I've been very fortunate. My role as House Corporation President is to continue to meet the younger generations of Phi Psis. And so I know Phi Psis that are Dan's age and older, and I've been able to continue to build relationships. And the common thing that I think we've all said tonight is giving back in some way or manner. And, the fraternity, I think when we were trying to figure out, Troy, what that last time we signed off in the chapter is as undergraduates to alum. And, I'm a diehard Republican, but I paraphrase from JFK's famous speech. And I said, it's not what the fraternity can do for you, it's what you can do the fraternity. And I think that's the mantra that we have to continue to live by.
Yeah. Chuck, you've got the final word. I enjoyed it then. I enjoy it now. What's that mean for you?
Well, it means that it means that I've been doing this for 50 years. So, my wife, who is downstairs, who I met on a blind date in the fraternity house, she understands it. So when, and that actually makes it a whole lot easier to do it when there's acceptance there. But yeah, I mean, it's not everybody acts, the people that are on this call, not all of our brothers graduate and would join us on this call. They'll fall off, but that doesn't mean they're any less brothers than we are. It just meant that they didn't connect the way that we did. And they're still our brothers. And this organization, a college fraternal organization, adds value to our lives if we put value in it. It is a two-way street, and our fraternity, as evidenced by this program here, is paying back and making the contributions that we make of time and money and good wishes is returning more than I'm putting in the way I view it. And so I think that we got a good thing going in Phi Kappa Psi, and we need to do what we can to pass it on to other people. So that's the way I view it.
Couldn't agree more. And I think Gordon, Dan, Sam, I think we're probably all in the same vein there. And we all can agree on that aspect. So, well, gentlemen, this has been an honor and a pleasure on the 170th anniversary of our beloved fraternity. To enjoy it then and to enjoy it now. And I thank each of you for your time tonight. And as what was then and is now, proud to be a Phi Psi. Thanks, guys.
Proud to be a Phi Psi.